Hello friends, I hope you are all doing good. The topic of discussion for today in the Videsh Niti series is India's changing nuclear sophistication curve. Now, let's try to understand what has happened. The 2021 was a very important year with respect to India's nuclear missile strategy. A very important aspect at that 2021 period was that we tested two important missiles. The first missile was the Shaurya hypersonic missile and the second one was the Agni Prime missile. Now, let's understand one thing that India is witnessing a rapidly changing security environment in its neighborhood. The Chinese are developing hypersonic missiles. Their hypersonic missiles are primarily designed for a warfare with the Americans. The Chinese are building up capabilities to overtake US as the sole superpower. And apparently, the Chinese and the Americans are locked today in a Thucydides trap. However, with respect to Pakistan today, the Pakistanis have been rapidly deteriorating the strategic stability of the region by not only developing what are known as primarily the tactical nuclear warheads, which are short range nuclear warheads, but they are also developing capabilities where they deploy these weapons very closely at the boundary near India. Such kind of a warhead being deployed at the border closely with India happens to not only threaten the strategic stability but also is a serious security threat to our country. It is in this backdrop that India has gone on for the testing of these two important missiles. One, that is Shaurya, is a hypersonic missile. Now, let us try to understand one thing, that what exactly is India's hypersonic missile strategy. So, friends, when we look at the hypersonic missile strategy that India has conceptualized, our objective number one in the hypersonic missile strategy is not to undertake any kind of arms race. That is the first and foremost thing. The second important aspect here is that our hypersonic missile strategy is purely conceptualized to decimate the command and control systems of the adversary, and also at the same time, apart from decimating their command and control systems, outmaneuver their radar facilities. So we are not developing these missiles for the purpose of any arms race. But yes, these missiles are by default offensive in nature and they are designed as a counter offense to an offensive behavior that has been number one unleashed by the Pakistani side. Secondly, when we look at the Agni Prime missile, the Agni Prime missile is based on the multiple re-entry target vehicle technology. This multiple re-entry target vehicle technology is a very unique technology that primarily allows India to launch multiple warheads and in multiple directions on multiple targets. So, in this scenario, when you launch, let's say, one warhead, and through one warhead, there is like a shower which targets multiple areas, then in this case, there is a lot of ambiguity on the enemy side. So, I'll give you a simple example. Let us say India fires one Agni Prime missile, and that Agni Prime missile is going to then target, let's say, 10 or 11 different targets in the territory of Pakistan. Now, all Pakistan can do is to understand that India has fired one Agni Prime missile. What they can actually predict is that there has been a firing of Agni Prime. But what they cannot predict is that what are the 10 or 12 different targets that this Agni Prime missile is actually going to target and destroy. So this is where please understand one thing, that India through the Agni Prime missile test has actually conceptualized a new ambiguity doctrine. This is a very new thing in our nuclear strategic thought, because till now our nuclear strategic thought was always based on very much of predictability. But if Pakistan is going to create a situation of unpredictability and ambiguity, then our response to that is the Agni Prime missile. This, however, does not change our no first use policy, because there is a stated no first use policy which we have not changed as of now and we do not intend to change as of now. However, keeping in mind the deteriorating security situation in our neighborhood, there has to be adequate preparation to tackle such scenarios. It is in this backdrop that this kind of Agni Prime technology gives us the leverage over the ambiguity that we can also maintain over the adversary. And all these steps collectively seen together, whether the Shaurya hypersonic missile or the Agni Prime missile, they collectively help us in creating an operational readiness and still maintaining a little bit of ambiguity where we do not give the leverage to our adversary to have a predictable warfare, considering that this ambiguity was actually started by the adversary first. Now, this entire strategy that India has adopted in 2021, and specifically with respect to the Agni Prime technology that we have tested, it is also taking India towards what is called as canisterization of missiles. Earlier, if you have seen the images of the Republic Day ceremony, etc., you would have observed one thing, friends, that we normally showcase our missile and other missiles primarily on trucks. And most of these missiles that we used to earlier have would also be launched and through launching systems like trucks, etc. But now, what India and its DRDO, that is the Defense Research and Development Organization, have done is that they have prepared the canisterization technology. So, what is canisterization technology? In a very simple language, if I put it, a canisterization technology is where a missile can be put inside a canister. You can imagine for a moment, in a layman language, a canister to be basically like a pen. If you remove the cap of the pen, you are able to take out the refill. So the refill, perceive it to be a missile, and the refill is inside the pen, which is a plastic casing. So today, think about this that India is actually creating canisters. So what are canisters? These are basically kind of mechanisms where, or these are kind of tubes rather, where we are able to hide our missiles in. So now think about it for a moment. Earlier, our missile, which was openly exposed to the enemy, is no more going to be exposed to the enemy. Earlier, the missile which was open and exposed to the environment is now no more going to be exposed to the environment. So we can prevent the harm of the environment on the missile. And very importantly, we can actually conceal the missile, hide the missile inside a canister or a case or a tube, and the enemy will never get to know because it might appear like a tower in front of the enemy, but that tower actually might inside have a missile. So India again, through the canisterization, is trying to promote this level of ambiguity, and this ambiguity also helps in keeping our enemy on toes all the time. So considering that today there is an overall era of instability that we are gradually witnessing everywhere all around our neighborhood, India is also trying to take steps to mitigate that by balancing that instability by promoting this level of little bit ambiguity. So, two negatives are being promoted today, but the larger objective still remains to ensure that there is stability in the region, primarily because while these are only minimalistic doctrines, minimalistic means that these are only enabling parts, the larger strategy of India of no first use still remains in place. So I hope you are able to understand that how India's nuclear sophistication curve is gradually moving, gradually transforming with the rapidly changing security environment around us. Thank you.